The Chamber of Secrets. You grew up hearing the whispers in the common room, the ghost stories told by older students to frighten the first years, but none of them truly understood the weight of the air down here. It is thick, tasting of ancient ozone and the damp rot of centuries. You didn't just find the entrance. You felt it calling to your blood, a vibration in the stone that matched the steady beat of your own heart. When the sink began to spin and the floor gave way, you didn't scream. You fell into the dark because the dark was where you belonged. Now, you stand at the threshold of a monument to a power that the rest of the wizarding world is too terrified to name. Your neighbors back home think you're at a boarding school learning charms and herbology. They picture you waving a wand at a teacup. They have no idea that your reality is measured in the shed skin of a monster and the cold stare of emerald statues that seem to track your every move. You are living in a tomb that is breathing. The plumbing of the entire castle groans above you like a distant, nervous animal. But down here, there is a terrifying, predatory silence. You have learned that the chamber isn't just a room. It's an ecosystem of shadows. Every corner holds a secret that Salazar left behind, not for the unworthy, but for someone with the iron will to endure the isolation. You move through the green-tinted gloom not as a guest, but as a master. The torches ignite with a hiss of magical fire as you pass, casting long, dancing shadows of a great serpent against the damp walls. This is your life now, a life lived in the deep, where the light of a sun is a forgotten memory, and the only thing that matters is the cold, hard truth of the stone. You are the guardian of the unseen, the one who stays when everyone else flees, living in the very throat of Hogwarts' darkest legend. It's alive, it's watching, and for the first time in your life, you are finally home. The entrance is a one-way trip for the faint of heart. You stand at the base of the slime-covered chute, the distant echoes of the girls' bathroom lost miles above. Your boots crunch on the bones of small animals, a carpet of ivory and dust that tells the story of a hunger that never sleeps. You don't feel disgust. You feel the raw honesty of the food chain. The walls here are tight, rib-like stone arches that pulse with a faint rhythmic thrum. You've learned to navigate the slick floor in total darkness, sensing the curves of the pipes by the way the air shifts against your skin. This is the transition zone, the place where your old identity as a student dies and your life as a shadow begins. You keep a mental map of every crack in the masonry, knowing which stones are loose and which hide the narrow crawl spaces where the humidity is thickest. You watch the entrance not for visitors, but for the way the light from the surface occasionally flickers, a reminder of a world that is too bright and too loud for the work you do here. The dampness has become your second skin, a constant, cool embrace that reminds you that you are deep beneath the lake, protected by millions of tons of water and the crushing weight of history. The tunnel opens into a space so vast your lumos barely reaches the ceiling. Here, the skin of the great serpent lies discarded like a ghost of the past, 50 feet of shimmering, translucent scales that crunch like parchment under your touch. You spend hours studying the patterns, the way the magic still clings to the shed husk, vibrating with a low-frequency hum that makes your teeth ache. This isn't just debris. It's a warning and a map. You live in the shadow of this gargantuan memory, using the hollowed-out tail as a shelter when the overhead pipes leak frozen runoff from the Black Lake. You've learned that the monster doesn't need to be in the room to be felt. Its presence is carved into the very atmosphere, a lingering scent of musk and ancient venom. You move through the shed skin with a reverence that borders on obsession, tracing the serrated edges where the scales met the stone. To the world, this is a nightmare. To you, it is the architecture of perfection. You don't fear the beast that left this behind because you have learned to breathe the same heavy, stagnant air. You are the only living thing that knows the texture of this monster's history, and in that knowledge, you find a jagged, lonely kind of peace. The long walk toward the face of Slytherin is flanked by the great serpent pillars. These aren't just decorations, they are the eyes of the chamber. You've noticed that the stone snakes seem to shift their heads when you aren't looking directly at them. The shadows in their open maws are deeper than they should be, reaching out to touch your robes as you pass. You've started naming them, identifying each by the specific way the green moss grows over their fangs. You live in the corridor of giants, where every footstep is amplified by the high, vaulted ceiling until it sounds like a heartbeat. The emerald glow that permeates the hall doesn't come from a light source you can identify. It seems to emanate from the stone itself, a bioluminescent rut that feeds on the ambient magic of the castle. You've learned to sleep in the alcoves between these statues, finding comfort in the cold granite against your back. You aren't bothered by the feeling of being watched. In fact, the scrutiny of the stone serpents is the only thing that keeps you sharp. You know that if you ever show weakness, if you ever stumble, the chamber will stop watching and start consuming. You thrive on that edge, the constant pressure of proving you belong in the presence of kings. At the far end stands the colossal bust of Salazar Slytherin, a face carved from the mountain itself. His mouth is a dark void, a gateway to the nesting grounds. You spend your nights sitting on his stone beard, looking back down the long hall you've claimed as your territory. The scale of the room makes you feel small, but the power it grants you makes you feel infinite. You've discovered that if you press your ear to the cold stone of his lips, you can hear the vibrations of the castle's core, the shifting of the stairs, the rustle of the great hall, the frantic energy of people who will never understand the silence of the deep. You are the confidant of a dead man, the silent partner in an ancient conspiracy. The humidity here creates a constant mist that clings to the statue's features, making it look as though the founder is sweating or weeping. You don't ask which it is. You simply exist in his shadow, a small, vital spark of life in a cathedral of stone. You have memorized every line of his weathered brow, every curve of his nose, until his face is more familiar to you than your own reflection in the dark, stagnant pools below. Beneath the main floor lies a network of drainage pipes and narrow sluices that carry the secrets of Hogwarts into the dark. This is where you go when the weight of the chamber's history becomes too heavy. The water here is black and perfectly still, reflecting the green glow of the ceiling like a dark mirror. You found that the water carries sound from all over the castle, if you know how to listen. A whisper in the library, a footfall in the dungeons. It all trickles down eventually. You live in the filter of the school, the place where the truth settles after the lies have washed away. You've carved your own marks into the lead pipes, a tally of days that no longer correlate to the sun or the moon. The cold here is absolute, a bone-deep chill that has slowed your heart rate and sharpened your senses. You can hear a single drop of water falling 100 yards away. You can smell the change in the air when the seasons shift on the surface. You have become a creature of the vents, a ghost in the machine of the school, living in the spaces that the architects forgot. You are the valve that keeps the darkness from overflowing, the silent observer of the castle's hidden pulse. The edges of the chamber are not solid walls, but jagged cracks where the magic of the foundations meets the raw earth of the highlands. Here, the stone is wet with ancient spring water, and strange, pale fungi grow in the crevices. This is your garden, a place of silent, slow-motion growth in a world of static stone. You've learned which mushrooms provide a dim, sickly light, and which ones can numb the pain of a bruised limb. You live on the fringe of the map, in the places where the ink runs out. The pressure here is immense. You can feel the weight of the entire castle pressing down on you, a physical reminder of the burden you carry. You don't feel crushed, you feel braced. The earth itself is your armor. You found carvings in the raw rock that predated Slytherin, symbols of a deeper, older magic that the school was built to contain. You are the bridge between the civilized magic of the wand and the primal magic of the soil. You spend hours in the silence of the perimeter, watching the way the shadows play across the rough-hewn stone, waiting for the chamber to whisper its next secret. Your life is defined by the moment the chamber decides to move. It isn't a static tomb. It's a living entity that breathes through its vents and shifts its weight in the dark. You felt the floor tilt ever so slightly, heard the grind of massive stone gears deep within the walls. You don't run when the statues begin to hum. You stand your ground, your hand resting on the cold scales of a stone serpent, feeling the power surge through the masonry. You have become the chamber's favorite inhabitant, the only one who doesn't recoil from its touch. When the great serpent moves in the darkness beyond the statues, you don't reach for your wand in fear. You reach out with your mind, acknowledging the presence of a peer. You are the heartbeat in the ribs of the castle, the consciousness that inhabits the void. Nobody knows you are here, and that is your greatest strength. While the students above worry about exams and Quidditch, you are presiding over the true heart of Hogwarts. You are the secret that the school keeps from itself, the living proof that some legends never die. They just go underground to wait for someone like you. The chamber is alive, it is watching, and it is satisfied.